Welcome to Worship Leader Wednesday Live. Thank you, Nick, for the sound effects.
You're welcome. You're welcome for that.
We're a few minutes early, so we're gonna say hello. Thank you guys for joining us. Today, I'm gonna actually wait until 11 before I talk about what we're gonna talk about.
You don't want people to feel left out.
You're hanging out this morning with Nick, Bradford, myself.
I explained what's going on with
my name is
iPad.
Brian.
You weren't listening.
Bradford explained his
My
technology.
iPad is freaking. I think, honestly, legitimately, this keyboard is what causes problems. Every time if I take it off, things work.
It's a nice
but
keyboard.
Can you guys just get to the point?
And this is Fuller. This is Fuller, by the way.
Hey, everyone. Glad to be here. Thank you for
you may
having
not
me.
see him, but you sure as Samuel can hear him.
Sure is Samuel. I've never heard that one before.
I don't know.
I
It's
do
coming up
talk
with
loud,
that.
but today I'm not going to talk loud.
Fuller's going to keep
That's
it at
my
a moderate.
guarantee,
All right.
promise to you.
Fuller's going to keep it at this level the whole time.
So, Caleb, Raina, Amanda, Brett, Jonathan, Emmanuel Baptist Church FTL. I think that's
They were
Fort
there last
Lauderdale.
time.
Is that right?
We asked last time and we didn't find out.
We asked, and I think we were told, and I can't remember. Sorry. Corey, Budget Racing. Good to see you. David, Brendan, Daniel, Jesse, Jacob, Paul, Jeff.
It's like
hello.
budget rentals.
Thanks for joining us. All right. We're going to get started.
Question.
We already got a gear question.
We haven't even started.
Maybe we'll
Gear
get to that.
Stream is third week of the month.
Do you know when the Quad Cortex editor is coming out?
No, we don't.
Worship Leader Wednesday live stream is first week of every month.
That's right. Thank you, Bradford.
We are consistently consistent with that.
Yeah, we are. All right, today we're talking about how to pick songs for your worship services. So there's a lot to talk about here. We've kind of got a few different topics that we're going to discuss. But first, I wanted to ask Fuller. There's one person in the room currently who picks songs on Sunday morning.
I picked the song for you.
So in the past, Nick, you've done this too.
But you guys have. You're
In
qualified.
the past, all four of us have been in charge of choosing what songs we sing.
That's right.
For a worship service or any kind of a service, whether it's a student service, it's all worship, right? We're all worshiping the Lord Jesus Christ.
Yes.
So,
Hey, man.
So Fuller is the only one of us who currently chooses songs.
I'm the only one left standing.
The rest of us are just YouTube scrubs.
You guys are influencers.
Actually, I could discuss my method for choosing songs.
Okay, well, let's do it.
Logging into PCO.
I'm going to ask.
Well, for a different reason, but I don't want
Okay.
to give away my
So,
approach.
so first, Fuller, explain your process for choosing songs on a Sunday morning, and then after you're done, Bradford will explain his process for choosing songs.
And then we're
mine's
going
nowhere
to
near-
vote in
Mine-
the chat
actually-
which process is better.
Actually, mine is going to derail the whole thing, so let me
Okay,
go first.
okay.
I'm referring to how I choose what songs I learn for playthroughs on the channel.
Oh, I see. That's a different thing.
I see
So
what
so
you did
so
there.
I'll explain
Totally
some
different criteria.
I'll explain some theory real quick behind it, and then I think Fuller would be the one to. It's similar ideas. So if you go to Multitrack's website, you can see top rentals and top downloads. The top rentals tell me what songs are in rotation probably more normally, because a rental, for example, you may see like "A Great Are You, Lord." That's not a top download. People aren't downloading that. People are already doing that. The rentals is like they constantly are renting it. So those
They're
help
actually
me.
singing it is what you're saying.
So yeah, they're like, the downloads that you get it once, and that's all that counts for. So that tells you what's hot and new. The top rentals are telling you what is consistently in church. The top downloads doesn't mean anything. 5,000 churches could download one song, do it once, and never do it again. That doesn't tell you anything. That just tells you what was like this week. This is how many people downloaded stuff. So that's just an interesting theory I have about how it shakes out. So if I see a song constantly in top rentals, that tells me that that's a song that's got legs. It's longevity. Top downloads.
We call that data analysis.
It is.
And that's
Is
very
that it?
smart.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm a
maybe-
musician, so I feel
maybe
like I don't really
we'll-
know those words.
Maybe we'll circle back to that. We'll
Well, let's look at
offline
it
this, then
from a 30,000 feet.
we can circle back to that though.
That idea, it actually came to this idea.
Do you want to
I invested in
brainstorm
it.
or do you want to
But-
think tank this?
But we can come back to that and talk about different places you can go to see what songs are being sung by
right.
churches.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll come back to that.
I think
all right,
we're
Fuller.
I think we're all brainstormers here.
Fuller.
Think tank.
What is your process?
Oh man,
You
I
will
just
be.
gotta
There's
say,
a lot of internal joking going
before
around.
anything, I just gotta say, Nick, your shots look amazing, bro. It really looks good.
Well,
Put
a
that
live
camera
stream,
on yourself, Nick.
a
and
live
receive
stream
the
has no
accolades.
business looking this good.
Thank you so
It does
much.
look good. I can see it on my iPad right now.
I was about to say some news channel wishes their news looked like this, but I'm afraid of whatever news channel I say.
Don't pick one,
People
man.
are going to assume
You're gonna offend
my
somebody.
leanings or something.
We should
So,
start doing reads though. We should start
The
doing
BB.
like 30-second
what's
reads.
like the British?
BBC?
Yeah, well, they're all liberals over there in England, right? That's how
But
it goes.
I think
Yeah,
I think though
I think
that has
so.
been reported
Roll,
to be
roll,
the
roll.
most
the BBC is
the most
Balanced,
neutral and
unbiased.
balanced. Yeah.
Which isn't saying much. Okay. Good stuff.
Well, for those of you watching, we are going to be quickly ending our banter so as to not
That's right.
offend anybody
Okay.
who
We're gonna put
watches the
timers
live,
on this stuff, yeah.
live stream after.
Okay.
All right, Fuller. What's
All
your
right,
process?
so we're going to talk about picking songs. My personal strategy, again, this is my own strategy. This is not necessarily representative of worshiptutorials.com or any other churches, affiliates, anything. This is my personal strategy. It's not the only way. It's just the most accurate way. No, I'm just kidding. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but I'll just run you through mine. Step one. So here, when I go to pick songs, which I often do, here's my process. I jotted it down. Number one is we have an active catalog that we're selecting from. I'm not just randomly going, hey, what cool songs are out there? I have a predefined catalog that we've dwindled down over time, which a lot of you are probably doing and have done. I've seen a lot of people softening their set list, making it smaller. So that's the first thing is we don't have 1,000 songs. We have like 30 to 40 songs in our active library, and we're picking from there. So right away, we've already narrowed down what our selection is. Doesn't mean we'll never add new songs. It just means we're not going to randomly add a new song because we heard a cool song on the radio. Mm-hmm. So that's step one, open up your library. Step two is, and this is probably going to sound super practical because it is. I do think this is a craft thing. It's a practical thing. You know, you can spiritualize it if you want to, and that's cool. And some people have different ways of approaching it, to each his own. But the second thing I do is I look at our team. Who's on stage? Who's our drummer? Who's our singers? Who are our band? Because in reality, it's, you don't always have a full team every weekend. So if I have a team, last weekend I didn't have a keyboardist. So I didn't do keyboard-driven songs. Now, I knew that I wasn't going to have one, so I was able to plan that, and we'll talk about that later. So look at your current team, look at their skill set, what are their strengths, and specifically the people who are going to be leading the songs. What kind of songs can they sing? That's important because the songs you do won't be effective if they're poorly executed or poorly delivered. So I want to make sure that I pick these songs based on the strengths of the team. The third step is I look at the topic. Fortunately, I serve with a pastor who is very planned out. I can look on PCO and it'll say what he's preaching on that weekend, what scripture, what thoughts, what ideas. I don't glue myself to that, but it is nice to know. Hey, if we're doing, something about the cross, man, that's really going to help the song selections or whatever. If we're doing something about some random topic like money, I'm not trying to find worship songs about money because there aren't that many. So I do look at the topic, and I think that's important. But I think more important than the actual topic is your set list congruency. So maybe I don't get a topic from the sermon, but maybe I want this week to all drive towards, I don't know, God's grace. So then I'll kind of use that as a parameter. The fourth step is I look at the current rotation of songs. How often have we done the song? Have we done it 5 weeks in a row? Maybe it's time to give it a break. I don't want to pound songs into the ground,
5 weeks
but
in a
we
row.
are rotating songs. I'll do a song every other week or every 3 weeks, whatever. And then the last thing I look at is the tempos, the keys, the music theory side of it. How do these songs fit together? Are they in complementary keys? Are we going to have to do some magic transitions and all that stuff? And then, make sure you don't, I've done this before where it's like every song you do is like 68 BPMs and it seems like worship is like an hour and a half when it's only like 20 minutes. So, making sure you have varying tempos, varying meters and stuff like that. So, it's pretty practical. That's how I pick my songs. And then, an important step to this is make sure you have your band scheduled and you have people confirmed before you pick songs. I always tell my team, I need you to confirm so that I can pick songs. I don't just randomly pick songs and then fill in the band, because that's kind of like a backwards way to work. So hopefully that helps, and I didn't talk too long, but that's kind of my process.
So
That's good.
clarifying question.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were some questions.
Somebody wanted to ask how or who decides on the active songs.
Me. But I will say this.
Me.
Yeah, because here's the thing. As a worship leader, you know your team, you know your skill level. If you just pick songs in a vacuum, it's going to be a disaster. Some people overpick their band. Like, I have a drummer that just started playing, and I'm going to do all Israel songs. Bad idea. So it's like, you got to know.
Even if they can play them, it's probably not a good idea.
Well, that's true too. So I think it's subjective, but I will say this. I let my worship team members speak into that. Like, I listen to them. I tell them every 6 months or so, hey, send me songs you guys want to put in our rotation. Or if a vocalist is like, hey, I love this song, this has been speaking to me lately, I will consider that. But there are some times where I had a vocalist send me a song a month ago, great song, awesome, but as soon as I heard it, I was like, this isn't really a worship song. This is a pop song. It's like, I don't see this fitting well for our congregation.
Yeah.
So I was like, maybe one day we'll do it as a special or something, but it's not going to fit in our worship rotation. And then other times it's like, oh my gosh, I just got 4 songs that I have never heard, and these are amazing. These are going in the set list. So I think that, someone has to pick it. I don't think it's wise to have a group of 8 people deciding on your set list, because that could take 9 years to finalize. So you just make the list and then you tweak as you go. And if a song fails, which sometimes it does, you do it once and it fails, that song is ostracized from the church for the rest of its life. So, some of it's trial and error. But if you know your congregation and you know your band, you can usually tell if a song's going to go over well. You got to be in touch with the pulse of your team and know, our team could kill that, or our team will screw up that bridge. I can tell you right now. I don't even have to throw it out there. So
Bridges are where
that separates the men from the voice.
That's where songwriters will introduce all the random measures of like 2 or 3. They throw them in the bridges.
Let's do that.
It's like that's where we put them. Yeah, and it's just like that
idea.
doesn't make any sense.
Right.
My wife does feeding therapy, so she's actually a speech pathologist. So she helps kids learn to talk. Speech pathology is helpful for people who have strokes in their 70s and everything in between. So it's not just like young kids who can't say their R's.
Yeah,
that was me. So it's feeding therapy. She said, just because you offer your child something once or twice even, and they don't eat it, doesn't mean just like that you don't offer it. Doesn't mean because I think of things that I didn't like and my parents just didn't make me eat. Yeah. That now in my adult life I'm trying again, and I'm like, I'm kind of into it. It doesn't mean my parents did a horrible job raising me, but the idea is you just keep offering. Hey, do you want some of this? And like we do that with my 3-year-old. We offer him, because he does not like, or he did not at the beginning like avocado, but now he will eat like mashed avocado. Anyways, all that to say, just because a song goes over bad once doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go over bad another Sunday. It could just be like your congregation just didn't sleep well and it was a new song and they just weren't like. Pro tip, I wouldn't introduce a new song on Spring Forward Sunday in March. Don't do it.
There's a lot of practical.
There's wisdom speaking.
There's a lot of, and that's the thing. It's like there is so much practicality to picking songs. People, I think, over spiritualize it.
You can,
but I think that it's God's blessing that all of these other practical things exist for us. There's all of the smart, logical things that if you follow these steps, it will seem way more spiritual because there's like this anointing on it.
Yeah. All right. So here's a follow-up question from Jonas Tube. How far ahead do you pick the songs?
I'm minimal 3 weeks. I think if you're out less than 3 weeks, you're crippling your team. And if you're between 3 to 6 weeks, I think that's healthy. I wouldn't plan 4 months in advance because people just get confused. Like, when are we doing that song? I'd say 3 to 5,
you
3
can
to
plan,
6 weeks.
But don't necessarily send out invites. I noticed it actually confused my team when I was sending out invites so far ahead.
Yeah.
And so it's just like I waited, but like they knew it was like clockwork. Yeah. Like they basically got it the second to last week of the month for the next month.
And let me preface that also with this. If you're doing a new song, like we're doing a new song in about a month, and I sent that out early, say, hey guys, FYI, new song coming up. Because, our team's in the place now where it's like they know all our songs because we've been rotating them. We don't even have to practice. They show up, we've done the song a million times. So when I do a new song, I give them a heads up. So that, because they're in the rotation just assuming they're going to know everything.
And they'll get there.
And then I'll be like, hey guys, be listening to this. You have 3 weeks to get the song inside of you, and then that helps too. So don't spring new songs on people. 3 weeks is for songs they already know.
Yeah.
If it's a new song, I'd put it out a lot further.
So, Leading Worship Well, shout out to Leading Worship Well. It says, fun fact, if you have 40 songs in your library and you do 5 songs a week, you can create almost 79 million different set lists.
That's funny.
That's the power of combination and permutation.
Yes.
I don't know.
It's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
Exponential.
It's huge. So
I mean, those numbers do include a few
right.
song lists
The
that
same-
are all the same, but
same
one
songs,
different.
but different order.
But the point still stands. Even if you negate all the ones that are so close to each other, there are still hundreds
Yeah.
of set lists to be made.
Well, and I find that I put a lot of the same songs together because of the way they feel together. So.
Yeah. And so here are a few more follow-up questions.
That's pro, Nick. That's pro. Nick's putting questions up.
He
thought he was gonna sit comfortably today.
Did I say that correctly? Nick's got he's
Legral?
Legral 89. Do you ever are there
Sounds like
times where
Legolas.
you play? This is something that some churches do. I've never been a part of a church that did this though, so I think I know the answer. But maybe you guys have. Do you ever have times where you do different songs in one service versus another?
No.
Like there's a modern service and a contemporary.
Oh,
service.
that would be different.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be basically like doing 2 services.
Different
But if
services.
it's the same service, if you have a 9 a.m. and an 11 a.m., the only time I've cut a song because it crashed and burned so hard
you
at
go.
the first service that I've just cut it. It's not worth the stress. But I would never pick different songs for different services. Now, if you're in a situation where you have a modern and a contemporary, that's a whole different boat. You're basically scheduling 2 services.
That's a different deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and may God bless you and keep you.
Do you have different teams for that? No, I hope so.
Yep. Leg or roll.
Lego
roll. There it is.
We got you. Do you do that? That's a question. I'm going to ask you a question.
Lego roll.
Do you do
Lego roll.
different songs in different you have 2 services on a Sunday? I think most. I don't know. I can't speak with any authority on this, as far as numbers go. But every church I've ever been involved in that did multiple services did the same exact service in both of them, and it's just so they can have more people. Come.
If I was in a position where I had to lead a contemporary and a modern service, I would try to find a way to do the same songs at both, maybe just slightly different arrangements, but not structure-wise, just maybe in the second service we don't have drums or something, but I would definitely not. I mean, the reality is you can do modern songs in a very, very old school traditional setting, and people will love them.
I beg.
You can do
I disagree because the only reason why.
Who's talking? Where?
This is Nick.
Oh, there he is. Let's get you
So
on.
I was an intern at a church where we had 3 services. Each service was different. So we had what would you call it? Hymn service. I don't know. Traditional, contemporary, and then modern. Each service had 4 songs, 4 different songs. We tried to do the modern thing, and the older people started leaving.
Yeah.
Because they're like, no, this is
Yeah.
not going to work.
Yeah.
We tried to dumb it down, take the drums away, only do the piano and stuff like that. They're like, no, this is not worship music. So I disagree because those people are very set in their ways, and that's okay. But gosh, let me tell you, it was one of the worst experiences of my life.
Exactly. That's kind of my
Learning,
point.
having 12
Yeah.
songs ready.
Yeah, but then also I was the youth worship leader. And so we did 4
Yeah.
songs that were different. from
Overall, it
those
sounds
songs.
like a great experience.
I loved not getting paid
Oh, that's
and just having to serve the Lord. So
Can I?
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's an extreme case, which is exactly why I just wouldn't even do that.
That's
Yeah.
just like
I mean,
that
it's
seems like that seems like a
It's too much to ask.
leadership
Yeah,
is trying
that
to
is,
please
yeah.
everyone, and
Yeah.
I don't think that's always the answer.
You can't please everybody.
And as an aside, I'll say Nick mentioned those people are very set in their ways. We're all set in our ways.
We
If you
all-
think
we all
about
can
it,
be
it's
that
like
way. Yes,
we
we are.
all
Aren't we, though?
We all like what we like, and we want. And if we're all honest,
it's hard to let go of stuff.
if we're all very honest with ourselves, when we go to church, we want the service to include things that we like personally. Like if I went to a cowboy church, for example, I'm not big into country music. I probably wouldn't like it, but I wouldn't expect them to have a different service.
yeah.
That is it's
That's different for me.
the reverse look is true. I don't always try to flip the coin so it benefits me.
Yeah.
But in this instance, I'm trying not to be that way, right? In this instance, that would be really hilarious for you or anybody who really can't stand country music to go to a cowboy church
I like some country
And
music.
force yourself to.
and then be like, I think y'all need to do more Hillsong Young and Free.
I like country music, but I don't think I could take it everywhere.
And that example is extreme, but like I think a lot of worship leaders can relate. They pick songs, they talk to the pastor, and they have anybody, no matter who, that says, I think y'all need to incorporate this other style of music that I like. And it's like, yeah, but that's kind of like, this is our sound. Like but then it's being if every single person that comes up to you at church gave you their opinion and you did what they asked you to do, like there's a line, there's a difference between serving your people and like knowing who they are, but then there's like this letting people just run your ministry and tell you how to do everything. So there's like this weird line and barrier you have to
there's a law of diminishing returns, right? Like you can.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I need to go downstairs and take care of something that I just thought of.
Okay.
This is weird. You guys keep this going.
Oh,
I'll mention that Nick and I saw a video of a country church doing something in the water.
By Carrie Underwood.
Gosh.
Baptism Sunday. Yeah, that video's been around a while.
Killed it. All right. I'll be right back.
We did that one time.
I think there's a false expectation that every church everywhere should be for everyone.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's what we're talking about.
It should be welcoming to everyone.
Yeah, you should
but
be
it doesn't
spiritually
mean,
welcome. Yeah, but everyone's going to have their own vibe and own style.
But it always comes down to opinions. And that's like our greatest downfall is that we think that our opinions are what matter most. And when something doesn't suit our desires, we're like, oh,
there's
it's
something
bad.
wrong with it.
Yeah. And that's always our first, I think it's our first reaction. Yeah. Whether you are, the Bible says, slow to anger, slow to speak, quick to listen. Like, those are different things. Oh, I think Brian forgot to take his trash cans out. I think that's what it is. I think that's what's happening. I love how he didn't want to say it, but the whole room we're in is shaking right now.
That's real life right there. But no, he's ministering to someone downstairs.
You're right. Yeah.
That's what's happening.
So I think that what we need to walk away with is that, like, just there's a lot of different ways to do things, right? One's not right and one's not wrong, but you can't, like around here in the Bible Belt, you can't throw a baseball without hitting 8 churches. So it's like, if one's not doing what you like, that's fine. Just go and keep moving. Move along, people. There's nothing to see here. So, but just stop trying to correct everybody else. That's kind of.
So a couple people mentioned hymns.
Yeah.
At one point, we were basically told, we're on a church I was on staff at, to do a hymn like every week.
Yeah.
And then we kind of got the leeway to like make it kind of feel like that.
Right, yeah.
Make it kind of feel like that.
Yeah.
And I have been a part of churches that like never do them.
Yeah.
And it's been interesting to me because when churches that never do them slip in Brian, we know you just took your trash cans out.
Brad called you out.
The whole garage was shaking.
No, dude.
The whole garage was shaking. It's like, are we going to pretend like nobody in the stream hears this?
Typically,
it did sound like a meteor was hitting.
Really? Is that loud?
Yeah, it's pretty loud.
It's pretty loud.
All right. Well, typically I wouldn't have interrupted this to do that, but there are some extenuating.
Yes, I understand.
Which is our point. There's always, there's always something else that comes up.
But hymns, we were talking about inserting hymns.
Oh, yeah.
Like the church I'm at now, when we insert a hymn, man, people just sing it out. You will get done. You will do more often. Yeah. You will do one of like the most moving and incredibly written modern worship songs with like the greatest lyrics, and people just don't sing out, no matter how many times we've done it. But you sing a hymn, especially start singing Amazing Grace,
oh my gosh,
bring the house down. And is that really what it's about? I mean, no.
But it means you're connecting with people.
Yeah. And like, the idea of choosing, because I've heard a worship leader say from stage, it was like a CCM artist doing worship stuff. Hey, glad y'all are here tonight, but just so you know, you're probably not gonna hear your favorite songs. That's not what this is about. This is only about worship. And then somebody like shouted. It was like a concert, right? Somebody shouted their favorite song of that artist, and they're like, "I told you not to do that. Don't do that. We're worshiping." Wow. And I'm like, okay, there's a line. There's a line here. Right, yeah. It's like, first off, it's a concert. Yeah. People paid money to hear you sing. Yeah. So
you owe them a little bit.
At this point, you owe people a little bit. But when it comes to worship, like if our only thought is, nope, God told me to do this, I don't care what other people think. It's like, well, I think you're not talking to God if God's telling you not to like care what your church body thinks. Like your church body, like it's supposed to be a little bit of everything. So I think knowing your congregation and inserting a hymn, because, especially because some of those hymns, are incredible. Sometimes you look at hymns and you're like, what does that even mean? But like sometimes you sing a hymn like Amazing Grace, like that will connect with people because they'll have heard that their whole lives, and to hear that song turned more worshipful as opposed to just like
Reading
like a traditional song that they've heard their whole lives, like the Hokey Pokey. Yeah. Everybody's heard that song their whole life, right? But that,
that is what it's all about.
It is.
Footnote, there are bad hymns. There are good hymns and there are bad hymns. So just because there's, in a hymnal, like half of those are probably not that good.
The funny thing is a lot of those were also beer, like bar tunes, which is hilarious.
They're all the same song. There's like 8 hymns. And then it's just the lyrics are different.
Trust
me.
We also do a hymn. I don't know if you guys said this, but we do a hymn every week.
You guys do? Okay.
Pretty much, I think.
Pretty much.
Nick, you were there.
Is that a mandate or is
It's
that
hard
just something
to
you guys
tell.
enjoy doing?
It's hard to tell because I don't know much about
I
hymns.
think it's on purpose.
You can typically feel when
I
it's a
think
hymn.
it's like intentionally planned.
Because one time they played Rattle, and I was like, what was that song? Brian told me, oh, it's Rattle. I go, oh.
That's not a good sign, by the way.
If you can't recognize the song.
That's not a hymn.
No, but I'm just letting you know, like, I couldn't recognize Rattle.
Oh, well, yeah, but I mean,
So
like...
I don't know if I'd recognize
No, I mean,
it.
like...
question
No, I mean,
becomes-
stylistically, you hear a hymn, and doesn't mean you... I'm not saying you know that hymn. I'm saying you realize that sounds like a hymn.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
There's a pattern.
Like, you typically can feel
It's
those.
1-5
I
and a
can't.
pattern,
I can't feel that.
No?
My
I
question.
didn't grow up in the church. I
That's
didn't grow
right.
up around hymns or anything like that. So.
That's right. That's true. Well, I'm fairly certain we do a hymn pretty much every week.
Yeah.
And
If
my
it has
question,
19
though,
verses, it's probably a hymn.
Sure.
my question is,
I've
could
left.
you not? Did you not recognize Rattle because you didn't know the song that well, or because the team
You couldn't literally recognize what they were
executed it so poorly that it was unrecognizable?
No, I knew the song. I just didn't recognize it.
I think it was the second option.
Oh gosh, that's you're
Okay,
bombing.
I'm gonna hope none of them are watching.
I know.
And then if you are, I apologize.
I love my church. I go there too.
Actually, if
Well,
you are,
the question
like,
is, what
let
can
that
we
be-
learn from this? What can we learn from this?
Right.
We're all here to learn.
All right.
Whew, man, there's some
okay,
good questions.
I got another topic. I got another discussion point for us. How important is it that we tie songs into the message?
Yes, there's a couple people who...
That's been asked.
Ask that.
How important is it? Fuller, go ahead.
I'm
Nick.
sorry. Just because when I was a worship leader, youth worship leader, at that church where I had the 4
First
services.
Presbyterian United Methodist Church.
It was actually a Wesleyan. But anyway, no. So the youth pastor. This is just a funny story, real quick. He came up to me. He's like, Nick, we need to match what I want to say in the sermon. And I was like, okay, yeah, let's do this. Like, what are you thinking? Like The Stand, From the Inside Out? He goes, no, I'm thinking like Huey Lewis. And I was like, what are you talking about, man? We're a youth group of like,
They ain't going to know that song.
I was 18. I'm like, I don't even know this song. I'm 34 now, by the way. And so that's a long time ago. And these kids are like,
What are you talking about?
and he's like,
Gonna go back in Christ.
you need to go. And he's like, you need to do a saxophone solo. And I was like, I don't do that, man. So he bought a blow up saxophone. And so when the saxophone solo came on the track, because I was like, I'm not going to play this song. So he played it on a CD and gave me a blow up saxophone to play along with.
Compact.
Saxaboom.
Your whole
like
story
Jack Black.
gives me anxiety. This is not. Nick's not allowed to talk anymore.
I have a
need-
similar
I
story.
need medication.
I have a similar story. Once
I'm having like withdrawals, OCD.
back when I was so I used to be a student pastor, and back in my student
Another
pastor,
great
we
story
all?
on the horizon.
Haven't we all? Didn't we all? We all used to be student pastors.
I would
I
go
was
to-
never.
I never was
will
either.
be.
I would go to Nick. Just Nick and I have this. We've traded many stories.
Yes.
You ever had to have a parent drive down to a foreign country to pick up one of their students?
Negatory.
Sounds terrible.
The only explanation is Mexico.
Or it could be Canada.
Could be.
But you said drive down.
Okay, yes.
If they drove any further down, that's commitment.
Yeah.
Can you get to
Okay.
South? Never mind.
Yeah, you
South
can.
America.
I've lived
You can
that.
drive
look at a
right
map.
down to Texas.
I've lived
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
You ever have a student offer? I'm not going to go there. All right. It was
What was our question?
Songs.
He's telling his
Weird
story.
Oh,
so
picking
I
songs
used
that-
to be a student pastor, and I would take the grade school age kids to camp, to junior camp. So these are like 5th graders, 4th graders, and my buddy and I. This was before my youth pastor days. I was in a traveling worship group called Crosswise. Best name ever.
Must be a pretty funny story because you see his eyes are watering. He starts.
It's really not that funny, and it's a long
I was gonna say,
story.
it doesn't take much for Brian to.
It's a long story, and it's not going to pay off very well. Anyway,
good
we wrote
setup.
we drove all over the place.
God, we're taking the time for this.
We drove all over the place, and we ran into all this. We wrote a song about road construction, and then we sang it at like this big talent show at the junior camp, and it nobody understood. It was like we're singing a song about road construction to a bunch of fourth graders, expecting them to get into it. I don't know. You just reminded me of it.
Oh my gosh!
I told you it wouldn't land very well.
You weren't lying.
The original question was
Songs.
Oh yeah,
How important is it for your song to tie into the message?
we have different views on this.
All right, go Fuller.
But I think that
I think we all have the same overarching view, though.
the most important thing I think is you just do you, right? Just do you. Like if that's important to you and that's important to your pastor
If
and
it's
to your
important
congregation,
that it lines up,
then just
yeah.
do you. If it's not, then just do you. Me personally, I have this theory that I've been practicing and observing over the last 15 years. I just don't think the songs matter that much. Like, I think the actual songs don't matter because there's so many. Here's the thing. If you have 40 songs in your library and they're all theologically sound, great worship songs, and they point people to Jesus, and your team executes them flawlessly every weekend, no matter what, you could just roll them up in a dice and just randomly pick them and probably going to have a great experience. Because you've already vetted through, you've vetted your songs, you've vetted the team, and so you are presenting. So I think in a vacuum, yes, they do matter. Like, you want to do a Guns N' Roses song? I mean, that's probably not going to go over very well.
Don't you
But within the
cry.
parameters that you've already set, songs that line up with your theology, whatever it may be, again, you do you, okay?
Knocking on heaven's door.
Yeah, some people are going to do
That's
Reckless
Bob
Love.
Dylan.
Some people aren't going to do Reckless
Eric
Love.
Clapton.
If you're not a Reckless Love person, do you. If you are, do you. Leave everyone else alone, and then just do your thing. But I think if you've already vetted and filtered all these songs, I personally, I've never had a weekend where I'm like, man, we should have, that song ruined it. That third song just ruined it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've had a crash and burn where I'm like, I'm never doing that song again.
Yeah.
But that's totally different. That's my own perspective.
I have on our WT Leaders Facebook group, there was a post the other day. Or maybe it was in Worship Leader. Maybe it was in a different Worship Leader group. I don't remember. There was a person who said their pastor they were doing a series on sex, which is a thing that churches do, right?
Yes.
It's a thing churches do a lot.
remember. I saw this thread.
And they were like, please let me know what worship
The
songs
amount of
we can
clever
sing
jokes there
about-
were. Oh my gosh.
about that topic. And everyone, the overwhelming response
There were
was,
so many jokes, and I felt horrible.
there were so many
I mean,
people
the
were
good
just
thing
like,
is you could just turn on your radio and find 100 of those songs.
and so finally,
No, I mean they were using song titles of actual worship songs.
I'm
all right,
so
we're
glad I
not
wasn't.
we're not going there.
I'm so glad I wasn't.
We're
in
not
that
going to go
group.
there. But it was just like, just don't.
Hashtag questions not to
Just
ask on social media.
Just don't do that.
Yeah.
You got to
Just
know
don't tie
you
it
get-
in.
that person
That's,
just
so-
gave them
that
an-
had to be a troll. There's
So,
no way
um,
that was real.
I think it was real.
No, that was real. I got the feeling it was real.
Yeah.
But yeah, just you don't have to do.
That's like kind of saying,
You don't
do you know
have
any
to-
kids' songs about drugs? It's like, it's just
don't think
some
that's the
things
same thing.
just don't go together.
pretty
No, but
close. It's just pretty close.
It's like there's some things that just aren't going to correlate.
So you don't always have to do it. I do think that if you can have a song or you can thematically tie your worship set into what your pastor is preaching, when it works, it's
it's great,
it's pretty awesome. But
Themes are good.
I wouldn't try and force the whole sex
and that's-
worship
well,
or message
sex.
series into a worship
Yeah.
song. Sorry,
I know we've been through seasons.
we're trying to hold it together back here.
Let's move on. Next topic.
Okay.
This is getting dangerous.
Well, so, but a few more points on this, in my opinion.
oh my God.
You guys,
Can we get on a 3
laugh-
second delay, Nick?
laugh off
Are
camera?
you still having this conversation?
No, I've moved on.
Oh, okay.
I'm still talking about tying your songs into the message.
Sorry, I'm just glad I can scoot back. And no one can see
These
my
are dynamic mics and not condensers. Thank you, Universal Audio, for supplying these microphones.
Hashtag not sponsored. But I guess it technically is. Moving
Nick,
on.
Nick
for
has
this-
one that's a different color over
This
there.
one's just a little different color.
This one's kind of the same mic, but
You're gonna have to filter the chat.
okay.
Brad.
So I think I've always thought that's like, if you can do it, it's great, but I wouldn't force it in a way that's like, I wouldn't do a song after a message that ties into the message that your church doesn't really know. Like, that's not the time or place to do a brand new song.
I think that's that's the trap people fall in. We got to line up the weekend with
Yeah.
the topic, and so now our whole set list is out.
Yeah.
You know, and
Well,
it's like we need songs about baptism, so we got to find these 3 songs about baptism
Yeah.
that aren't good songs.
or their
Probably
church has never done it.
Yeah, and it's like
So-
that's what I try to avoid.
And almost every time, and this comes up a lot, like in social media, in groups like Facebook groups, it's like, okay, our pastor's preaching on this topic. Take baptism, for example, and they're asking what songs tie into that. And my first thought is, obviously you don't have any songs that you regularly sing that tie into it, or you would have immediately thought of them.
Yeah.
Like if you
Yes.
did, like if you always did,
No-brainers.
like if you always did "Beneath the Waters" by Hillsong,
No brainer.
like you would do
Throw it
that.
in there.
But so it tells me that they're gonna do a song that nobody knows.
Yes.
Right after the like
Exactly.
in this very worshipful point,
Yeah.
and it's gonna go over like crickets
Yeah.
because nobody knows the song. So I don't think it's worth trying to force a thematic song like that if your church doesn't know it. That's not the time to introduce a new song. Now, if you can plan ahead and your pastor is like, we're going to do baptism in 8 weeks.
Yeah, you start cycling a song in.
Let's find a song that would work for this service. And now you've got 8 weeks. You can learn the song. You can introduce the song 4 weeks early. You can do it 3 times. And then you can do it on that. But
it's
you know what that
powerful.
takes? Planning.
and work, yes.
And it takes scheduling ahead of time and communication with your pastor. So I think it's cool if you can thematically make things work.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's worth doing something that your church doesn't know, your team doesn't know. It's a song, and it might be the best song in the world for that
And
point. But like, if you don't know it, it's not worth doing.
I want to take a time. This just popped into my head. It's a great, I think, bounce off of that is. This is why I think worship leaders in general have all their priorities out of whack a lot of times. So we spend all of this time trying to pick a song to match a sermon, but we still use the same musicians every Sunday. And we're not spending time recruiting new musicians. We're not
We're trying to
spending
find
time
new
building
songs,
our
but
team.
not
We're
new
not,
people.
yeah. So it's like, I think part of this, a lot of my approach, I know I rub people the wrong way when I talk through my processes and stuff. And Fuller's not spiritual. He doesn't pray about his set list. Dude, I've been praying for 45 years. I think I can pick 4 songs. So it's like,
For
I
20
don't
minutes,
have,
every 20 minutes.
I don't have to
He's been
pray
praying.
every time I'm picking a
Can
song.
we bounce that out?
Yeah.
That's the real.
So, but what I'm saying is this: it's like, but what I do know, what God has put on my heart, what I do pray about is I need more musicians. I need to pour into my team. I need to develop leaders. And so I think we spend so much time picking songs. What if we spent that time building our teams, pouring into our teams, recruiting new musicians, and then all of those other things will become really easy. And so I do think musicians and worship leaders in specific, I've been guilty of this. I focus on the wrong thing. I focus on doing all this stuff when I'm putting the cart before the horse. It's like, let's get the horse first. Let's get the people. Let's get them trained up. Let's get them the vision and the culture of who we are, why we exist. And then from there, we can pick some fun songs. But if you pick the fun song first and you don't have a band that can perform it, your priorities are out of whack. And I think a lot of the times we see these, what do I do? This thing happened. It's all, if you just back up and go, all right, let's reverse this process and look at the real problem. The real problem is prioritizing. You open that when you said it takes planning. That's exactly what it is. Those things are important. I'm off my soapbox now.
I think
I'd like to get on.
If you're thinking like you don't have a song that fits the message and you need to introduce a new one, I think that may mean that song, like, then maybe there's some songs you need to pull out of the rotation, because if they're that like pigeonholed and you don't think you can make it work, because at the end of the day, that the theme of the sermon should always be pointing back to Jesus's greatness, his grace, his love. I always
Which is
thought
99% of all worship songs.
right. I always thought it was funny how we would like try to pick a song to be a response song, as it were, when we did a sermon on, which also was weird to me, just personally, a sermon on joining life groups. and then we had to pick a song afterwards. I was like, neither one of these things makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Why don't we just do 4 worship songs up front and dismiss people to go sign up for life groups, small groups, whatever, after the message? That way they can actually go directly do, like, if it's that important, why do we got to sing about it? Like, I believe in connecting with other people. Like, what? But like,
that's overthinking.
I believe in going home after this song.
I believe in. Has anyone seen our keyboardist?
go into Cracker Barrel. So, like, if you're struggling to pick songs and you feel like nothing goes well on Sunday, I don't think it's your band, because I have worked with bands where I basically pulled hobbyists, and I say hobbyists as in like they owned a guitar and it was in their office kind of hobby, like that kind of thing. I've pulled drummers, same idea, who's like, oh yeah, I played in the drum line in high school. I've pulled people off of the proverbial bench who claimed to me that they did not want to play because they could not. Yeah. And they became part of the team and they loved it. And I would pick a song, or we would do songs and be like, that didn't go so well. And I was like, that ain't their fault. Like, I picked a song that I should have known. These people have incredible hearts, and what they wanted to do was be a part of leading their church body, the campus at that case, in worship. And I picked a song that set them up for failure, and they feel like they're not that great.
Yeah. And it's on you.
And it's my fault. I still remember, I've brought this up in different videos and streams. I remember a Sunday where we didn't have a rehearsal. I think we had like some other big event. And so it coincided with rehearsal, so we canceled rehearsal. And I remember thinking, I think actually it was like the day after like a big conference we did. So we were playing 3-4 songs that we had actually done like a couple times during the conference, and I was so over them. I was like, I just played. We had all these rehearsals, we had run-throughs, we did 6 sessions at this conference.
You mean
and
you were tight?
Huh?
You mean you were tight?
Well,
your band was tight
at the conference,
Yeah,
but
right.
this was Sunday, right?
Yeah.
So we showed up a little early.
different-
I was
oh, my
exhausted,
gosh,
but we had to show up
I
early to
remember those
rehearse.
weekends. Oh.
And we played the songs, and after the first time we ran through the songs, I was like, that was awesome. And it was one of the greatest Sundays because we played to our strengths and realized if we pick these songs, and you're not, I get it. Worship's not about making people feel good. And yes. However, people want to be a part of something when they feel like they're making a difference. They feel like they're showing up every week and they like have to learn all these songs and put so much effort into it, and they can't, and they feel like all they're doing is regurgitating as opposed to just playing and leading worship. Like your church body's going to notice. They're going to be like, how can I even follow these songs? We like, I don't even know this song, but I'm going to flip that coin real quick. I don't want to keep talking, but I'm going to flip the coin. Have you ever been to like a concert and this artist you've never heard of opens up, and then they do a song, and you're like, oh yeah, I heard that song in K-Love. That's why they're here. It's like one song. That, But then they start doing a worship song, again, you've never heard, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And you're like, this is an amazing time of worship, and I don't know any of these songs. And it's like, it's so I will say, I'm going to turn it around. You can absolutely have impactful, powerful sets that people are going to engage in when nobody knows the songs. But the environment is different. It's a different thing. People came to those concerts to sing. They came to that.
Yeah.
It's different. So like I'm just saying there are times where 4 songs that nobody knows can still be incredible. So that's like, for instance, if you're going to another church and you've never been before and you've never heard their songs that they choose to do, or you have someone come lead and do like a guest thing. I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up because I thought it's interesting. Like, and it's just a different environment. But if we try to fabricate those environments, so fake. Like we don't need to. So authenticity breeds. It was kind of a random couple ideas, but just talking about songs that I felt were played out, but then going some places and not knowing any of the songs and how it was incredible too.
Yeah,
Environment.
I think. Well, a lot of that I've experienced has to do with, and I'm going to use this. We can talk about another topic here that has to do with crafting a worship experience. Is when I've experienced those times, I can think of one in particular. I was at a conference. What was the guy's name? I can't remember the worship leader's name. But he did a song, and it was just
Chris Tomlin.
It wasn't Chris Tomlin.
Never heard of him.
But what he said in front of the song made it super impactful.
I've experienced that.
And so how do we so the things that as worship leaders, we have opportunities in a worship service to speak every once in a while. And
Which is a huge privilege.
a huge
Do
responsibility.
not squander it.
Yeah, and a lot of times I think we go into it without a plan, which is
Not good.
Not good. So we maybe can talk for a moment about how do we craft a time to say something that's appropriate and what to say, because it has to do with choosing songs. Because
There's a trash track.
hey,
Can y'all
my
hear
garbage
that?
is going
Can
away.
y'all hear that?
You just made it, Brian.
I
I'm so
did.
proud of
You
you.
heard it in
Yeah.
headphones, Nick?
I would not have
All right.
made it had I waited.
That's
So.
right.
Oh, that sounds like a sermon point. I would not have made
you
it.
pick a song to
had
follow
I
that, Brad?
waited.
Do you guys know any songs about waiting?
Yeah. Maybe. How do you guys go about approaching that? I can say what I do.
Do it.
Often it's when we do introduce a new song. Because a new song, and I always think of it like this. We as worship leaders need to give people a reason to sing the
Yes,
song.
amen.
Something to latch onto. So what I often will
Or
do,
at least help them find the reason.
help them find one.
Yeah.
Yeah. People often have a reason. They may just not know that they have
yeah.
the reason. So what I will often do is I will pick a part of the song. Sometimes it's a chorus. Sometimes it's a bridge. Usually it's one of those two. And I'm thinking of one that we did recently. Can't think of the name of it. I can almost sing it. Rains came, winds blew, but my
Firm foundation.
Firm Foundation by Cody Carnes. All right. We did that, and I set the song up pointing people to that passage or that part of the song. And I think I said something like, how many of you when you were kids sang this, the wise man built his house upon the rock?
Dang.
And that's what I said.
And
How
the
many of you?
rains
And
came
everyone's like
tumbling
raised their
down.
hand.
See?
And everyone started singing, and the rain.
This is-
and
ladies
the
and
rains
gentlemen, this is
came
a
up
pro.
and the wind,
This is a pro.
And I said, so we're going to sing the adult version of that song this morning.
And all
This is
the kids
such
are
a cool song. And then I said, and here's how it goes. It said, rains came, wind blew, and I sang that part. And then I said, I want you guys to sing this with me. And we all sang, rains came, wind blew. And I said, we're going to sing this new song. And it's about, God, Christ being our foundation, regardless of what we go through in our life. And I kind of set it up that way.
good.
And when we got to the bridge of that song, I'm going to tell you,
they belted it out,
everybody
yeah.
sang
Yeah.
that part. So,
I was there. Nobody sang.
Nick,
It's all in Brian's head.
don't tell me that.
Everybody.
I
sang
mean,
it.
just
No, that was
filter
really
that
good.
through all of Nick's previous comments.
Yeah.
No, for real though, I was there.
It's a
Nick, you were there.
I was there. I was in the back.
You believe this guy asked you to sing?
Yeah,
I mean,
right. It's
ridiculous.
crazy, but no, it was really good because so I really don't care for a lot of the fluff that people say.
Yes.
Before songs, people are like, oh my gosh, this and that and this and that and God is good and this and that and this and that and rainbows and butterflies.
They
and,
not
shut
that any of that
up.
stuff isn't true. It's like they
Sure.
say it because they want to hear themselves talk.
Correct, but just
We get
shut up.
endorphins from hearing ourselves talk.
And so
Just shut up.
When Brian was like, he brought some levity to the situation with Lorraine's, you know that song, right? And everybody's like, yeah. And then, well, we're not singing that. And then we're gonna sing the adult version. It was my wife even was like, wow, that was brilliant.
Oh,
And it was very cool. It was one of the best.
Having said that, though, still no one sung.
Nick, all that to say. Yeah.
so
So I was doing the hokey pokey.
So
right?
yeah, okay. So a couple points though. One is pick your spot very strategically. What you're going to say, or where in the service you're going to say it. Communicate to everybody so that they know. And if you want something to if you want some ambience, like I think there were pads playing or something.
They were.
which you can purchase from worshiptutorials.com.
Let's be honest. It had nothing to do with what Brian said. It was the pads.
And like the team knew I was going to do it,
turned
and
some
so
on
they
here.
Oh, so
and
you
I
were prepared.
I planned it ahead of time. And so the thing that Nick talked about, and I'm the same way, often people will say, well, they'll just repeat the line
you'll be
from the
like,
song, which
yes.
you can do, but it's kind of lazy.
every single time, don't do that.
Yeah,
But once
or
in a while,
Unless it's
whatever.
the greatest
or
lyric ever written.
you won't have a plan, but you're going to think, I'm going to set this song up. And we're going to sing a new song. It's about this and this. We haven't really said anything. Yeah.
No.
So I made this a point for me this year because I've started at this church that I'm at. I lead worship, which at the previous church I was at, I got to a point where I didn't lead much. And I made a point. I thought to myself, I do not ever want to speak and have not said anything.
Yeah.
And because it's really easy to speak and just say nothing, and have nothing of value, or not of value, but like have nothing really be communicated.
Yeah.
And so my thought
It's better
was,
to not speak, honestly.
it's better to not say anything
Yeah.
at all.
It's okay to
Proverbs
script nothing.
says things about that.
Yeah.
So that's
Even
my
the fool is considered wise when he.
that's my
Brian.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
even a
that's-
fool is considered wise when he says nothing.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
he holds his tongue. All right. So what do you guys think? You have thoughts on?
I think that's perfect. I mean,
on
you
what
said-
you- how
it's
to-
okay to not say anything. There are
That's a
weekends,
good point,
There
yeah.
are weekends where I'm just not feeling it. I'm not feeling connected or whatever it is, and I'll just be like, you know what? We're just gonna do 4 songs. I'm not gonna say anything, and it might change during a song, and I might get something, but then or sometimes it just doesn't. And I've never regretted not saying anything.
Yeah.
It's like you're just kind of like, okay, cool. I didn't say something stupid or something inauthentic. But I do think authenticity is the key. It's like just be real.
Yes.
I think what Nick was saying, and this is what I'm the same way. It's like you can kind of, or at least you feel like you can tell when people are just going through the motions. I hate sitting you don't believe any of what
Yeah.
you're saying, or like you're just like, I like the real. I'd rather you be real and not say anything, or be real and say something deep or something, but it's real and it's not contrived or scripted, or you said the exact same thing the last 8 weeks. So I think you got to be real. You got to be. The other thing too is people don't need information. They need a reason, and it's like, if you look at marketing commercials and stuff, people don't need to know that Coke has a new flavor. They need to know why they got to drink that flavor.
Yeah.
And so I think that's like the whole, hey, this is a new song. It goes like this. No one cares. Like, they don't need that information. They
Somebody
need a
said
reason.
They're probably going to know.
There was a comment that has to do with it. Oh, Mason says, Mark Lowry says, sing it or say it, but don't do both.
That's funny.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
That's
What you were saying was very good.
it's just like people need a reason. They don't need the information. You can get information anywhere.
Right.
That's why we've had this conversation about announcements, like announcing things on. People don't need to know when and where stuff is. They can find that online. They need to know why they should be there. Mm-hmm. And that's what you have to do. They need to know why they should sing the song, not what they're singing. So that's something that I try to filter, is like, if I just give people a what, I'm wasting my breath and their time. If I give them a why, even if they don't agree with the why, at least we tried.
At least we. Yeah. Yes.
I would say, like, what I used to tell people, they'd ask, like, especially at conferences, because I used to be a part of, like, helping out with stuff like that. And people would be like, well, like, the entertainer, well, what should I do? Should I have this sermon prepared? I'm like, don't do that. That's why the preacher was. That's why he's
exactly.
here or she's here.
Don't preach
like
a message
you're here. What are you here for? To entertain and show God that. Yeah, show them God, but like you don't need to do another 30-minute sermon, man. Like just do your magic and move on. Like they all know why. So it's like, don't give just extra fluff to just be like, hey, I have to say this because.
I have 30 seconds.
Yes. And then to what Fuller was saying too, it's an amazing thing is if you have nothing, if your tank is truly empty, one of the best services I've ever been to, the worship pastor, he said something to the effect like, hey, my wife and I just had a miscarriage like 2 months ago, and I'm still dealing with that. And this song is about, I don't know if I'm going to make it through it.
Yeah.
And then everybody just was like emotionally bought in.
Yeah.
One, but like two, it was just a time. What do we say at church anymore? Welcome home, right? We say welcome home, church, or this is my church family. That truly was the only time in my entire Christian life that I felt like I was home and I felt like a family because I was brought into this crap that this guy and his wife had, and it was real, and it was excellent after that, but it wasn't fluff.
Yeah. Authenticity. People. Yeah. That's you got to remember that you're not performing a song in front of an audience. As worship leaders, as team members, we are a body of believers worshiping God together. And man, I can imagine that felt like that whenever that guy said that.
Yeah, dude. I'm gonna be honest. Just because of the person I am, I was like, oh, don't care. That sucks. I am sorry. but ultimately I don't care. I don't know you.
Yeah.
But then once we started singing and the people like that were next to me and everything, and they were like really, they weren't crying but they were like really getting into it.
They were emotional.
Yeah, and so I was too. And so ultimately, obviously, subconsciously, I did care. And God, the Holy Spirit moved in that moment for every single person, whether you were in like a mindset of it or not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Real authenticity is very powerful.
I've seen people like make the argument that kind of stuff is like, oh, you're making it about you. You need to point people to Jesus. But still, like, you're a worship leader, and if you have a church that doesn't need any like help getting to that point where they sing and you don't need to do anything, then that's different. Then you don't need to say anything. At that point, that's when you take a different approach and you handle things differently, and it's all that. But if you're trying to teach your church how to sing, first off, and you keep picking new songs all the time, I'll just go harken back to what we're doing here. Like, nobody's going to be able to keep up. Musicians like are the ones who can hear a song once and pick it up. Your church probably has heard that song for the first time. Yeah. But telling people like what God has done with your life, like that's like a powerful thing. You're witnessing, you're telling of the goodness of God and allowing people in on that. And it's like you're not the pastor in the sense that you need to preach 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever, but you're still needing to be pastoral over those people and give them an opportunity to really understand why these songs matter. Because some songs, even though they seem great and people can say, this is a great song, it's really powerful, they don't always understand why. Not everybody does. And I know about myself too. Like, I've had times where, I mean, also just Bible verses. I've had somebody read a Bible verse, and even though I had heard it my whole life, it spoke new life to me because of the way they read it, the conviction with which they read it, the songs they tied it into or whatever. And so we're not just talking about like, you're not, the point of, if what you're saying is like all about you, okay, that is different. But if you're sharing like about connecting things and getting songs so people can understand exactly why this song's important. And if you're having to concoct a reason why a song is important,
just don't say anything.
Just don't do the song.
Yeah.
It's like
Well,
maybe that song's not, because there are songs where you're like, man, this is a cool song.
Well, but
and they're
also
not
though,
worship.
it might not be important to you. But I mean, how many times have you done a song and you're like, oh, this song's terrible, and someone's like, that song really spoke to me.
Yeah.
So it's like, it may not be for you, it may be for someone else, but that's when you just keep your mouth shut and just like
and as
let
long
the song
as
do the
the
work.
song is biblically, theologically sound, and
Or, you know, like they say, let the song do the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
I mean, they typically know what they're doing. That's why it's a popular song.
Or if you want to
Successful
say
song.
something and you don't really know what to say, like, hopefully the songs that you're singing are rooted in the Bible.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like there's life and power in the Bible. And so just read just read where it comes from. Just read it out. Like you were saying, you heard a passage, you heard a verse or a couple verses, and it spoke to you. Yeah. Well, that's because
Differently than it had.
That's because there's life in the word, right? There's power.
Yeah.
And you might not have power in the words that you come up with, but you got a whole book full of power that, you know,
that has
at your
defeated the
Run and
great.
tell that.
disposal. You know, that you just read a passage of scripture and we're going to sing a song about this. That's all you got to do. Go ahead.
The same power that conquered the grave.
That's right.
So,
That's
but
right.
one little chat thing here. Somebody said, Brant, I believe. What's the
I
line
was
of
gonna bring that up,
authenticity
yep.
versus dirty laundry?
That's a good question.
Oh my gosh.
That could be a whole live
I just
video.
I just had a 2-hour conversation with a couple guys at a men's retreat and our pastor about this, because our pastor is very open, and we were talking about how important context is, right? Because if you're struggling with something, like Brad, you and I could go, you know, to a restaurant, me and you, one-on-one during lunch, and you're going to tell me things that you wouldn't tell other people because there's context to our relationship, right? I know you can say things to me and I won't be like, oh my gosh, this guy's crazy. Whereas if you say that on stage in a room full of people that don't have that context, it comes off weird.
Yes.
And I think I don't like, and we had this really cool conversation with our pastor, and it's like oversharing. Don't do that. Like, you know, there's a difference between I want to be open and authentic and like, dude, that's not comfortable. Like what you're sharing is uncomfortable because there's no context. So I think knowing your context is really important. Don't air your dirty. Sharing that in a room full of people you don't know, that's kind of weird. Whereas
you can simply say, I'm struggling.
Yeah, you can reference it. And there's different levels of what that is. But I would it's always better to me I'm a very private person anyways, but I think error on the side of less is more. Just less is almost always more.
Yeah. I think
I get uncomfortable when people share their dirty laundry with me publicly.
Yeah.
It's like people don't need to know that because they don't know you.
Yeah.
Yeah, personal relationship is a
very
important thing.
The easy thing though is, and this is what kind of we're talking about too. It's like you're gonna have to practice and get a bit like the speaking. Some people are just naturally gifted. What's the phrase? Gift of gab. They just have it, right? And some people are just anointed and gifted in that way. But to say that you don't need to practice speaking, that's funny to me. Is like, so the pastor doesn't either, or just the worship leader is the one that should speak from the heart and what God moves on. But the pastor, it's okay if they prepare. Yeah. So there's that. Yeah. But so if you feel like there's something you need to share and you're not sure, like bring it up to your leadership, whoever your leader is, if it's your pastor or whatever, and just be like, hey, I want to share this, and allow them to help you decipher what makes the most sense. The other thing is if you are struggling with something, like, don't be ashamed. This is kind of off topic, but I feel like it's important to just remind people everybody struggles with things in their life. And what you struggle with, is, even though it may be small or you may feel like it's small, you're still struggling. Yeah. So if you're struggling, you should share those things with people. And, don't just feel like you can't share anything. I only say that because I think I've been seeing that it's like Mental Health Awareness Month. Yeah. And I just, I know, like, I normally like all of these, like, we're going to celebrate this month. And like, there's like a day for everything. It's National Microphone Day.
Well, tomorrow is May the 4th.
So there you go. I celebrate privately.
I feel like I've got Everybody Hurts by REM going.
Oh, that's a good one.
But I'm just like, I think it's important just to bring up, like, everybody struggles with something. Doesn't matter who you are.
Find someone to talk to.
Yes.
But it might not be your congregation.
Your thing.
All of them at once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your thing may seem small to you, and I think that's common. A lot of people think that what they're struggling with is like other people struggle with so much more. It's not just, if you're struggling, you should talk to people.
And remember, once the words come out of your mouth on stage, you can't get them back. So it's better to maybe not say it, think about it, and then maybe say it next week.
Especially because it's probably on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter.
Once it's been said, it cannot be
anymore. It's all online.
That's right.
Yeah, Brian said something, and I have it saved in my phone, and I can call it up within a few seconds.
That's true.
I won't share it.
I think we all know what that is.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tim Hughes. All right, Nick, you brought this up. Did you have some thoughts on it?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
What was the question originally? Oh, yeah.
Dirty laundry versus authenticity. Where's the line?
So this goes into Jensen George's question. How do you say more things within songs to not make it feel forced? And the authenticity and dirty laundry go together, in my opinion. Because, so the dirty laundry thing is, I have a lot of things bad in my life, and you all know that. And I think there is a good way to talk to people about those things and showcase those things. But if you are not versed in how to speak to people without relationship, is, you shouldn't be doing anything outside of fluff. That's my opinion. Because you just aren't there yet. You
just not ready.
Yes, you got to obviously do it to practice it, to do it, to do it better. And so that's where it goes into not making it feel forced. If it feels forced, like, you need to do it more to not feel forced, right?
Practice.
You got to practice. Do it in front of your mirror. Do it in front of a camera. That's the best way to do it, because you can watch yourself back. You can hear yourself sound stupid and be like, wow, I don't want to sound like that in front of people. Or, hey, I just overshared way too much right there. And I want to be authentic, but I can't be, like going to jail.
Awkward.
Yeah.
Going to jail.
But like, yeah, so for me,
If that's the case, we got another problem we got to talk about.
but for me, like, if you are on, like, trying to be authentic and you just happen to be like, somebody is offended by what you said, you got to be prepared for that. You have to
Yeah.
be, because you cannot please everybody. We talk about this often. You can't just be like, hey, but obviously at the same time, you can't just blatantly say something and be like, well, God told me to, so I was being authentic and bold. Like, nobody
I'm
cares.
a truth speaker.
Nobody cares, brother. Shut up. Like,
I'm a truth teller, and that offends you.
Yeah. Well, the gospel is offensive, then that's what they say to me. Anyway, but yeah, if you don't feel confident in, or if it feels forced, you need to do it more. But if you're over sharing something, let's for instance just go off the rails real quick about that guy about the miscarriage.
Yeah.
If he would have just like dove into like the doctor was doing this and that, and then my wife was doing this and details.
Too much.
Yeah.
Right.
But because he said, hey, we did this, we're struggling.
Yeah, that's plenty.
And then there was weight.
Yeah.
You felt the weight of the
Yeah.
pause.
Yeah. You still say, just telling people you're struggling is still being authentic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you don't have to share any details.
No.
So you can still be authentic but vague, and it's just what's the appropriate time. It's probably like a pastor who's preaching could take longer to share a story about what they're going through, and it's the appropriate time. It's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
All right. That's some good stuff.
A lot of good content. We didn't waste too much time.
Yeah.
I think we were efficient.
It's noon here on the East Coast. It's time for us to go eat some lunch,
Dinner.
Brunch.
I always get the names of the meals mixed up, and my child, who's 10, will be like, yesterday I was like, what do you want for dinner, Seth? And it was, or not, I said, what do you want for lunch? And it was, dinner time.
How dare you?
He looked at me like I was an alien. Like, you mean lunch, Dad?
You are, Brian.
Dinner, Dad?
Kids are sharp these days.
Well, I grew up saying dinner for lunch and supper for dinner.
I did too.
So I'm
I
from
have
the Midwest.
I
so-
did too. Dinner was the largest meal of the day, and often when you're working on the farm, that's the noon meal. So that was dinner.
That's crazy.
Otherwise
to me.
known as third breakfast. I just call
What about
all mine
second breakfast? Elevensies?
Third breakfast, fourth breakfast, fifth breakfast.
We've had one breakfast.
My grandma would
what
bring
about
out a
second-
Does he know
casserole.
about second breakfast?
We're talking about Lord of the Rings over here.
That's good stuff.
I'm with you.
I love the switching of all that's happening.
All right, so we're gonna sign off. Thank you guys for watching.
Thank you very
for
much.
all the commentary, for engaging with us in
For
conversation.
keeping it mostly clean.
We will be back in 2 weeks for the gear stream. And save your gear questions for that. I saw some coming in here and there. So same time, 11 o'clock Eastern, 2 weeks from now. And then the first Wednesday of the month, next month, we'll be back for the Worship Leader Wednesday live stream. Yeah, that's about all we got. We're going to try and end this gracefully, Nick. Are you ready? All right. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you, Bradford, Fuller, Nick, for doing this with us. Bye.
Some Huey Lewis.